finished with this, we will be logging out of this meeting and logging back into the board meeting. This meeting and the next meeting will both be recorded, and that's part of the reason for logging out, logging in, that we can separate those meetings so they're not tied together for further viewing purposes as well. So with that said, we have a lot to discuss, so I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Clark, and we will get started.
Thank you, Director Gibson. Just want to talk, first of all, I want to talk a little bit, just very briefly, about the time and the energy that our staff, our community, our board, and all of us have put into this project. It goes without saying that it's not an easy decision, and it won't be, and I don't know that it's going to be any easier as the year progresses. We've all watched this virus spread throughout our country and create havoc and uproot a lot of situations that in many of us never dreamed would happen. But that's where we're at, and we have to make do with what we have, do the best job we can for our students, staff, community, and move forward. The reopening plan that's in front of you has not been edited much from the last time you saw it. There have been some edits. I'll ask Tracy. I'm only going to briefly go through this because most of the people on this meeting, or a great deal of them, have seen this before. It was posted on Friday, so let's work our way through it. I want to, our mission, our vision, we want to adhere, we want whatever we do to adhere to those words and those deeds, and we want to move forward. Our reopening priorities are there, right there. Health, safety, and wellness of all the people associated with the district. We want to address equity as we provide, whether it be a hybrid model, whether it be remote or face-to-face. We need to address those inequities. We need to engage our community, engage all of our stakeholders, and communicate well with them. Everything we do plans for the ultimate return to face-to-face instruction. That's where we do our best, and we have to move forward in that model. High quality instruction, that includes both remote, virtual, and face-to-face. Our planning timeline. This is a little bit different. It is, I believe, the board's goal. What? No, I'm not. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Tracy can't.
Oh.
The planning timeline is a little bit different. I believe it is the board's intention to make a decision this evening at the board meeting, not at the workshop. And then we, meaning the administrative team, will approve and bring a reopening plan required by OSPI to be approved at the next board meeting. Next slide, please. I'm going to yield the floor to Sonia to talk a little bit about our health and safety requirements. And I would also like her to give a brief synopsis of our ESY extended school year for special ed students the previous 2 weeks. It was July 13th to the 23rd. So Sonia, are you there?
I am, thank you. Hi, everyone. So last Friday, the Department of Health came out with some clarifications regarding face masks and coverings. I feel like that's an ongoing discussion, but the bottom line is that yes, all staff, students, and guests are required to wear a face mask that is stipulated to be a cloth face mask, fitted with, no real big gaps. However, they make it very clear that there's reasons why certain people cannot wear face masks, and they do allow for shields to be used on students. So again, some of those changes are just coming out, and I think that that's just something we're going to have to chase a little bit. Again, the health screening, you've seen that in the community. And maybe if you've gone to OMC, they take temperature. They're also saying that the parents can take temperatures. If we have some sort of a way for parents to communicate that to the school, at this time we do not. So I will talk about the ESY at the end. The screening process went very well for ESY, as did the masking process. Staff were all very encouraged by how well students wore their masks, didn't mess with them after they were on their face, and were very, very compliant. Some of the paperwork that I turned into Dr. Clark lists, it's kind of a go-to to list where there's access from the Department of Health and the CDC about staying home when you're sick, the questions to be asked of students who've been away from the school when they're allowed back, if in fact they were diagnosed with COVID or even weren't diagnosed with COVID. So all of that is been pinned down so that we have a quick and easy way to get real answers to if any questions come up regarding that. And physical distancing, again, some new information came out on Friday regarding the ratio of staff to students and some of the room sizes, group sizes in regard to schools. But the masks are going to need to stay on, especially when physical distancing is at its most difficult. So ESY was for 2 weeks. We ran it exactly like we would at the startup of the school year. A couple of differences was we provided disposable masks to all students. And the reason was because we hadn't quite figured out how we go about making sure that masks are getting washed. There's been some good information to come out from the Department of Health regarding washing, bringing them in baggies, having the name written on them, when students don't have to wear them, when they do have to wear them. But again, students were very compliant and the days went very well. And the questions that came up regarding if students had been traveling or had been possibly exposed, we were able to easily answer them all. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonia. John McCandy, if you're on, talk a little bit about the safety and health considerations of our facilities.
Hi all. Yeah, we're starting to work on some of the barrier products, trying to prioritize, get some of those offices set up. We have on order some sanitizing equipment we should be able to use on our buses, as well as a chemical that's actually a natural product. Is based on thyme oil, thyme the herb. It has a 4-minute kill, and we're hoping that will be one of the safer alternative antiviral, antibacterial elements as well. So I'm trying to think. Yeah, just right now it's just getting ready. Once we have a model for how school's going to start and what that's going to look like, we'll definitely prioritizing and start working on first getting our offices set up, and then and putting up some signage and some other aids to assist us in social distancing. So lots of things in works, and hope to have that to come together this month. Anything else, Dr. Clark?
No, that works well. As we go through this plan, and I'm going to hit Jennifer up here in a minute, but there is a list of everything that is expected for all our departments, whether it be food service, how we're going to reopen, the parameters involved in those. And one of our jobs administratively will be to hold everyone's feet to the fire in regards to this. And that is, for me, that's job number one. And that I'm going to be spending a great deal of time making sure our buildings are ready to go, that our students, staff, and everyone are adhering to the guidelines. And we just need to take care of this. It goes without saying that we've seen what's happened in states, municipalities, and other areas where they let their guard down. They thought they beat the virus, but they've had to turn around and come back, and now they're in worse shape than they were before they opened up a little bit. And we cannot get to that point. I'm going to talk about that more in detail. But I want to go to Jennifer and have her talk about the hybrid model and the remote learning and professional development that her committee worked on this past 8 weeks.
Good evening, Dr. Clark and school board. So up on the screen right now, we have kind of a learning reentry plan based on what the directives are for the state and local governments and our health department. The teaching and learning and tech department combined, and they did an excellent job of trying to pin down an always moving target. They went through several hybrid models and they came up with what they felt was the best model for SQUIM, which was an AABB model, which allows half of the students to be in the buildings at any given time. After the last board meeting, we did I didn't talk with them in person, but I did poll them because it was the first time where I had heard more of a leaning possibly to a remote start. So I did poll the group of technology and teaching and learning folks, and they are dead 50-50 in the middle, hybrid versus remote. A lot of different feelings either way. So we did continue with the hybrid model that we had put forward on an AABB, but I do have to say that there were some people in the group that felt that we should start remotely. Either way, Bo and I will have the remote learning options ready and available to go as soon as we can. There is a great deal of back end work that people don't necessarily see for Skyward and different learning models in terms of what we have to get ready for the fall, but we will have those ready to go. Some of that information will come out publicly tomorrow. And then in terms of professional development, we will make some decisions and have a lot of time available for teachers to collaborate with each other during the professional development time in August. We have planned for that to be virtual because that is 3 weeks from now. We don't know what kind of condition the Clallam County will be in at that point. So we're planning on a virtual start for professional development. That could change if we are able to have more staff in the building. But what you've got up here is just a review of the AABB model again. You'd have half of your students in on Monday and Tuesday, they would be A, and you'd have the other half on Thursday and Friday, and they would be B. There's been a lot of questions to me about will we keep families together? Absolutely, we will do that. If you have students across the system, they will be on the same day. Wednesday is going to be for teacher planning and professional development. If you remember, on a normal school year, we do have 1 hour professional development on Mondays. Those will be moved to Wednesdays. And then the principals, when they're back next week, will discuss about what Wednesdays will look like more specifically, because that is also a time when teachers are going to have to check in with their students who are remote. Tracy, if you'd move forward one slide, please. Yeah, so just a reminder, there's some positives and challenges for the AABB model. I don't need to reiterate those. You guys can take a look at those. One positive though is that we'll be able to see some students in real time in flesh and blood. But challenges are we've got some Monday holidays. They're not full school weeks. There's other things to think about in terms of challenges. But either way, if we go hybrid or remote, we will be ready to the best of our ability. And I think that's all from me, Dr. Clark.
I'm going to give Bo the floor for just a minute. Bo, talk a little bit about technology and how we're more prepared than we were last spring.
Okay, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so we've got hundreds of new devices coming in for students to use, some of which will be for students for Dungeness virtual school, others of which are part of a math curriculum adoption, others of which are to fill some other needs, some of which have even come in through some grant funding. You know, as those come in, we're getting them prepared and issued so that they're available and ready for use, whether the kids are in person or not. In the case that they're not, we're still working on the plans, policies, procedures to accommodate that and figure out what that's going to look like. So that's a work in progress. And then as far as like supporting the teaching and learning piece of it, there's a lot of professional development involved that's targeted at making sure that as we sort of standardize learning management systems, that's going to allow us to put more of our hours into supporting teachers. In a lot of cases in the past, we've had maybe, 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 different sort of avenues that different people were taking, and it's difficult to support that many different ones to any significant degree. So as we've sort of identified the biggest players in the game moving forward, the ones who can do it all, that's allowed us to really plan to provide much better in-depth, constant sort of support and focus on doing things better, and making sure that people don't feel like they're being, sort of thrown to the wolves. Like it's really important that we're not only helping the students handle this brand new type of environment from a technology perspective, but also the staff. So that's our absolute top priority.
Jennifer, you needed one more minute.
I did. Sorry. For everybody who's on here, I just want to kind of clarify one thing. And I know that things can be very confusing right now, but I do want to talk about Dungeness Virtual School really quick, just for a minute. Dungeness Virtual School, Dr. Clark asked Principal Ricky Benny to look into that back in October. And it just so happens that Dungeness Virtual School is coming online during a pandemic. It wasn't created because of the pandemic. It was created for students who wanted an online experience, who didn't necessarily want to come into the schools like traditional students did. So it's coming online at the same time, and there's some misconceptions about if we're in a hybrid. There's rumors out there that students, if they want to be all online, that they have to go to Dungeness Virtual School, and that is inaccurate. If we are in a hybrid model, we have discussed with the principals that if parents or families are uncomfortable sending their student to school those 2 days a week, students can stay 100% remote and still remain attached to their brick and mortar school. So for example, if I have a child at Grey Wolf in 5th grade, but I'm not comfortable sending my child back, my child can stay 100% remote, be connected to her teacher, her 5th grade teacher at Grey Wolf, and get the support from the school in that hybrid model. Of course, if we're in a remote, that would be kind of a moot point, but Dungeness Virtual School is really for students who want the online experience and don't want the traditional high school experience. Their curriculum is different. It does not follow the traditional K-12 brick and mortar curriculum. It's a different one. They can take classes at at the brick and mortar school and on Dungeness Virtual School. But I just want to clarify that Dungeness Virtual School is not a response to the pandemic. It's just another option for our students who may not want to be in a traditional brick and mortar. So if we go hybrid, students can choose to stay 100% remote, but remain attached to their own individual school and have their own individual teachers. So I just wanted to clarify that, and we'll try and get some more information about that out tomorrow as well. Okay, thank you, Dr. Clark.
Okay, and again, in the latter pages of this document, everything, or hopefully everything that we've outlined is there. I encourage you to read it. I encourage you to ask questions about it, but I'm not going to read these bullet points to you. I got ahead of myself a little bit. I am going to talk about food service. We will be expected to provide meals for all of our students this upcoming fall. From March to middle of March to the middle of June, we were able to provide meals to any student who wanted them. There was no charge, and we used buses. We used the Boys and Girls Club provided meals. There were meals at the middle school and Gray Wolf. There are some questions that have yet to be answered in regards to meal service this upcoming year, in regards to are all the meals going to be free? And we're waiting on OSPI and the USDA, which is the United States Department of Agriculture. They govern our meals program. So we do not know at this point in time if all of the meals will be free. We do know we have that obligation to provide them. How they're going to be distributed is a little bit up in the air. I'm assuming we'll use a little bit of the model we used in the past. And let me be clear, those meals will be available for all students in regards to whether you're a brick and mortar student, a hybrid student, 100% virtual online. What needs to be determined and will be determined in the next 3 to 4 weeks is how you will get those meals. Meredith Arsenault, our food service director, has some plans, and they could involve getting multiple meals at one occasion and some other things. So we're going to figure that out, and we're going to get that out to you. And when I talk about getting it out to you, I'm putting Megan Like, our PIO, is in charge of this, and she's going to talk about our communications plan.
Thank you. Good evening. The first slide you're going to come to is just our reopening plan for just what constitutes our communication. We want it to be predictable, accurate, inclusive, and reasonable. That goes for both staff and students and families. Those are two totally different things, and sometimes they do coincide. We have teachers that are also parents, but ultimately, this is what we believe to be the most important, so that it can be very concise and very clear to all of our families. The next, we'll basically talk about my trifold communication approach. We're going to be doing 3 different. A lot of you have seen our prints. So anything in the newspaper, Skyward, websites, the newsletters, our social media, that's something that we have done. We know that it gets out. We know that it can saturate our community, but we're going to be really focusing on all 3 of these at the same time. And in order to do that, we do need to have our Audible, which is, our bi-monthly for each station. Dr. Clark has been a guest, and has been invited multiple times to be on these radio stations. And so using that as kind of the conduit, like everyone loves hearing what's happening at the school, especially now. And so having him there on those stations is going to, people will hear his voice and want to hear what is actually happening. The last one is our visuals, something that we haven't been able to really do a ton with, that I am so incredibly excited with. Something that I've been involved with for many years is just doing commercials, having things that are done nicely that people can look at. Really love to see our district set apart and be able to show off really ultimately SQUIM, because our school district has a lot to offer. And on this peninsula, that is something that I think we can really excel in. So my trifold, just basically print, audible, visual. I really think that if we can go about doing that, it's going to reach every kind of person in our community, not just people that read the paper or have kids in our schools.
Okay. Sonia Bittner has would like another couple of minutes. Sonia?
Yeah, thank you. Real briefly, as we were dialing through here, social emotional health, I didn't address that when I was speaking. That was part of safety and facilities. And Cheryl McAlaley did some very good work and forwarded suggestions regarding social emotional health for students. We know they are our barometers. And this is a hugely stressful time for families, and it's going to be very important that we address that right away in the fall. That leads me right into just saying that as we set up for ESY, the health education, as well as the time spent here on social emotional, but educating our staff to be able to be prepared to be at school, meeting the state requirements, L&I requirements for that, the family education that's needed so that they know what symptoms we're looking for or what to do or what to call and notify us when they have concerns for. In addition to the student education, all of that, even in ESY, we realized took a lot of extra time that, I don't think we were unprepared for, but it was nice to actually see how that rolled out. And that was all I wanted to add. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I have a few things to talk about in closing, but I'd like to give it back to Chair Gibson to see if we have some questions from the board.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you. One quick question, clarification, Sonia, whoever can answer. ESY, what does that stand for?
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead, Sonia.
Well, if you know what the acronym stands for off the tip of your tongue, you go right ahead.
It's extended school year. It's many of our special needs children have written in their IEP, and they historically have been served in the summer. It's been a 3 to 4 week program in previous summers. We narrowed it down to 2 weeks or in mornings this year. It's one of those things that, without going into great detail, all of you know that an IEP, an individual education plan, is a legal document, and the school district is expected to fulfill the parameters of that legal document. And we have not been given the okay not to fulfill those legal parameters. So perfect. That's what it is. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. That answers that. Okay. So I'm sure we've got a few, and we've got probably about 15 total minutes here of time to finish up before we close out and go on to our regular board meeting. So I'll just run down the line here, start off with Director Koo with any questions.
All right, thank you. Appreciate everyone's comments, and obviously extensive amount of work going into this. Really want to give appreciation to the task force members. Maybe at a later time, it'd be good to hear who those individuals were, but in the meantime, I know there was a lot of people hard at work doing that. Jennifer, thank you for the clarification on the uncanny timeline. Thanks, Tracy. on the uncanny timeline of the Dungeness virtual school and what that does and does not include in relation to our COVID response. I think that's I know that's a critical detail there's just been a little bit of confusion I've fielded as well. So I appreciate you making that distinct clarification. Regarding a virtual, I guess what I'll call a phased in approach, can you speak at all to the timing of that hybrid model and, when it potentially could open up into more and more in-person time? Are there specific milestones that need to be met, or what are the triggering events?
Is that for me or for Jennifer?
Oh, no, sorry. Kudos to Jennifer, but I will make the question to you, and you can assign as you deem fit.
Well, one of the large tasks that what we have to do whenever we start back with students, and for that matter, just with staff, is we have to be prepared to adhere to all of the safety and health protocols. And one of the reasons, like Sonia described, as one of the things that we looked at ESY, we had about 28 students and about 12 staff members, and they had to go through all of the safety protocols, and it was, both on the bus and in class, and we're able to do that. And as we roll up, I want to remind every one of us, when the situation happened, and I want to say it was March 17th, but don't quote me on that exact date, Governor Inslee closed the schools. So there was no one that could be in the schools for any length of time. Yeah, people came back and got some of their work or what, but the schools were closed. There's no movement that I'm aware of to close the schools. Correct that many districts are starting remote, but there's no talk that I'm aware of at this point in time that we're talking about closing schools. So as we look at the reopening phases and the reopening stages, part of that is we want to do on a staggered basis so as we are adhering to all those protocols. If we do start with a few students, let's say 100, and then what's the benchmark? One of the benchmarks will be that we get through a 2 or 3 week period and we don't have any COVID cases, and that the numbers in our county are going down. The one thing about the data that we have to deal with is we're at the mercy of the whole county. SQUIM could have perfect data and the rest of the county not have good data, and our fate is sealed by that. So, and I'm going to talk about numbers a little bit, but right now, our Clallam County's numbers right now are somewhere between 27 and 30 cases per 100,000 residents. There's 77,000 residents in Clallam County. So, according to the parameters that have been set up by the Washington State Department of Health, we can start with some students. If we go over 0.75 of per 100,000, that would not allow us to start and or shut us down. And those numbers are updated daily. They're on the Department of Health website. Through July 29th, our county was at 27.6. The majority of the counties in the state of Washington are not able to start per these guidelines. So are there, the benchmarks are just that our county continues to show good numbers and that we don't have cases. And what I'm not sure is if we're going to use 2 weeks or 3 weeks as a barometer. But as we move students back to face-to-face instruction.
Great, thank you. The only thing I'd add on there is I was having a hard time finding that I'm using the term infection rate, and forgive me, I don't know if that's the right term, but the active cases per 100,000. I certainly understand the number. What I haven't been able to find is trend data for that. So I'm reaching out independently, just as Joe Citizen, but I just wanted to mention that in case anyone else happened to have that.
I'll make sure that that link is on our website by tomorrow. It updates every day at midnight. It hasn't been updated since July 29th, but it'll be updated, and they take the 14th day off and add the current day. So there's about a 4 to 5 day lag on it.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah.
No other questions, Mr. Chair?
Randino, I think you're muted.
I was muted, absolutely, yes. Director Jeffries, sorry. Thank you, Brian.
Howdy.
Yeah.
Thank you. I can agree with Director Koo. I think the reopening document and planning is excellent and on a par with the best. I just don't know for sure yet when we can implement the brick and mortar version. I am concerned about reading. Let's see, my first question is for Jennifer. I appreciate you expressing a difference between remote learning and DVS. And online learning to me is third party, where the students are no longer associated with the school. I don't know where we are on that. My main question though is the AABB model. That means the teacher is teaching kids, half the kids on AA and the other half of the kids on BB. Who's teaching the 100% remote?
So a couple things. So the first kind of question that you had was regarding DVS, and those are still our students. I want to clarify, those are not our students. Those are still our students, and they receive credit through us. They're just fully online and and they use a different curriculum. In terms of the AABB, the students that are 100% remote are still attached to the teacher that they have in their class. So let's say that there are, let's go back to 5th grade at Grey Wolf. Let's say there are 22 kids at Grey Wolf, and there's half in A and half in B, but a few of them choose to stay remote. They will stay remote with their teacher, and the teacher would be responsible for checking in with them. And then teachers have, if you see in that AABB schedule, they'll have a prep period every day in the AABB, and then they will also have Wednesdays where they can check in with their remote students. And if teachers feel comfortable, they can live stream and or record their classes for students to watch and view at a different time. So there's lots of different options, and those are things that once we choose a model, whether it be hybrid or remote, that we can clarify through the principals with the teachers at that time. So I hope that answers the question, Director Jeffries.
It gets to it. I was just concerned about double duty. Teachers trying to teach live and remotely at the same time, and I wasn't sure how that was going to be accomplished. What are the Monday, Tuesday students doing on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday?
It's interesting. I had a conversation with an SEA member today, and we discussed that. And so those are some things that we'll have to discuss and have some expectations and some commonalities with when we know what the model is going to be. And then we can make those decisions and get those firmed up at each building. Because what we do at the high school with 6 credit-bearing classes may look very different to what we do at Grey Wolf with 22 5th graders.
Very good. And I would just like to emphasize the importance of communication. I think Megan has some great ideas and enthusiasm, and I think in the long run, that may be our most important tool to communicate with the public and let them know what's going on so that they're fully informed and on board with what we're doing, because this is going to take a community effort, staff, students, parents, and the entire community. So the more we can get the word out there, the better. I have some other questions, but in the interest of time, I'll move on. Let somebody else ask theirs. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Jeffries. Director Stoffer, looks like we got about 4 or 5 minutes.
Yes, thank you. I'll just say that appreciate all the work that's been involved. I was on the Safety Health Committee, and questions on that have been asked and answered. The involvement with our community is paramount. And just hearing about the other agencies involved, from USDA, OSPI, State Department of Health, city and county, that's what our staff is navigating through. So I just utmost appreciation, and thank you, Dr. Clark, and all those involved with this plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Stoffer. And Director Pickens.
Yes, appreciate all the work. I'll get right down to a couple of questions, although I think we might run out of time. So I think we can maybe spend some time during the regular meeting to
and I'll let you have some of that. I'll wait till later.
Okay. So my first question is around busing, and so I was just curious, in a hybrid model, if we would be using and I know there's another issue around bus funding, and I'm going to try to separate that because I know that's a separate concern. But in a hybrid model, if we would be using the same amount of buses, therefore allowing some more spacing with students, in that sort of model, and kind of along with that, have we looked at, I know there's a ton of details to work through still, but have we looked through anything regarding how we ensure social distancing and safety of students, if that can be maintained at bus stops as well?
The social distancing at bus stops is a concern. I would agree with that, especially when we have multiple families, because the social distancing requirements always exist, but they're a little lighter if it's your family and not a group of families. That will be an issue that we're going to have to deal with. I do know at a lot of our bus stops, we do have parents. If your child's under the age of 11, you are, or somebody needs to be out there with the younger kids, but that will be an issue that we have to educate our parents and educate our students about. Right now, I think if we were to go with a hybrid model, we would use fewer buses, but not dramatically fewer. But that really kind of depends on what groups of students are A and what group of students are B, and if we'll use neighborhoods or those as the parameters for how that would look.
Okay. I can hold off on other questions, Mr. Chair.
Okay, great. Well,
just one
go ahead.
I assume most people are going to return for the regular board meeting where we have a budget hearing to start it out with. But I want to emphasize something Director Jeffries said a few minutes ago, and that is, if all of us have the same desire, and that is to eventually be back to face-to-face instruction, we're all in this together. And that means that we have to mask up when we're outside of our home. We have to social distance, and we have to adhere to the guidelines that have kind of been put forth in front of us. One of the issues that scares the heck out of me is Labor Day weekend. And if you look around the country, when the spikes have come, many of them, I don't know about all of them, but many of them have happened after 2 weeks after the holidays. Memorial Weekend, 4th of July, and we have Labor Day coming up here in approximately 4 weeks. Many of us are going to have to change our behavior with those holidays. And if that's what we want to do, if that's our desire, we have to, chin up and get those things done. So I wanted to get that. I'll probably talk a little bit more about that in the second session, but I wanted to make sure in case no one came back, or I know people will, but in case you didn't come back for the second session. Thank you, Director Gibson.
All right, thank you. And just lastly, I wanted to also reiterate what others said. Thanks to the task force and all the work that was done and the presentation. A lot of good, clear information there. And this isn't, as was been said way too many times probably, but an unprecedented situation. This is a decision that nobody has ever had to make before. And we're all in this piece to have to make that decision. And so it's not easy. We appreciate everybody's grace, patience as we go through this today. And we will, at that point, end this meeting and give individuals a chance to log out and log back into the new meeting. Thank you all.